Hello, and welcome to Sitter's Baked Goods. Today we're going to be making raspberry jam. It's a very simple recipe, but a very useful recipe. So, let's get into it. I'm going to be using frozen berries, like I use for all my jams, because it concentrates the sugar of the berries, giving them a nice concentrated flavor. First, what we're going to do is we're going to put the berries in first. I've let them sit on the counter for about half an hour now, so they're getting softer, but they're still a bit frozen. But we're gonna mix it with our sugar first, let the juices come out, mix it up, start blending it and cooking it and getting everything good to go. With my jams, I do use a lot of sugar, and I understand that people want to be healthy and everything, but make sure that you use all the sugar that I use, because you want that amazing flavor. If you just put half of the sugar, the recipe might not even work if you do that. You might have to use more pectin and things like that. But if you want to be healthy, just use less jam for whatever you're using it for. And that's a way better option than making inferior jam and saying that you're healthy. Because what will end up happening is you'll put twice as much jam as you normally would, and then have more sugar than you normally would if you just had good jam and less of it. So keep that in mind when you are deciding if you want to change this recipe for yourself. And of course I have my pre-measured lemon juice and zest that I'll just pour on top. And we're gonna let this sit for another half an hour to let the juices come out, and then we'll start cooking. Once you get to this stage, the juices will have come out and you can mix it together and it will look like this. Now the only thing you need to do now is blend all the raspberries to get all the juices out and to make it nice and smooth. Also, make sure you get your water on, start boiling it so you can sanitize your jars and lids. So, we'll come back once I've blended all this and that starts to boil. Make sure you keep your jam on low while you're doing this. If this starts to bubble up, it could easily cover everywhere and be a huge mess. You don't want that. You want to make sure that you focus purely on this, because it's very dangerous to have boiling water and then panicking around. So, we're going to put in our jars, 30 seconds on each side, minimum. It's always good to go past that. And once that's done, we take them out, do all the jars. We're doing about 3 liters of jam, and then at the very end we'll do the lids. Once all the jars are done, we're gonna do the lids. Just make sure that the seal is undamaged on all of them. If they are damaged, they won't work properly. And what will happen is your jam will go bad within a month or so, when normally it could be 2 years or even longer before the jam would go bad. So all you're gonna do is put them all in, and then just make sure that they're under the water. If they're not under the water, they're not doing anything. They're not killing any bacteria. So let that happen. While that finishes up, I'm going to turn up the jam so that it gets hot by the time these are done. And then we'll move on to putting in the pectin. And we're almost done and ready to pour. Once it just starts to bubble up, you will start to see it starting to rise. Put your pectin in. Make sure you get all of it. And then just mix it up. Bring it back to a boil. Make sure you've mixed it nicely. And once it starts boiling again, we're gonna skim the top of all the bubbles to make sure that all our jars look good and are filled properly and don't have a bunch of air pockets in them. Once it's come back to a boil, take it off the heat and just skim the top for bubbles. You don't have to do this. This is more for looks and to make sure that each jar is filled properly with the same amount of liquid in each one. Because if you put all these bubbles in one jar, that jar could be like 40 milliliters less than all the rest. So keep that in mind if you are doing this to sell. But if you're not, and you're just doing this at home, you might as well use it. It's still jam. I still use this jam at home. I just don't pour it into my jars. And you can see the difference between the bubbles and the liquid. The liquid's a lot darker. So just keep going until you got rid of most of them. You don't have to get all of them because it's fairly hard to get all of them without wasting a lot. But take as much as you feel comfortable taking. And that's all I'm going to take. I take a lot out, but again, I'm going to use this at home anyways, so it's not a big deal. Depending on how long it takes you to finish this from when you boiled your jars, you can do it by hand or just scoop it. These are cold enough for me, so I can just do this and have less spillage this way. Fill it a bit more than you would think, because as it cools down, it will shrink a bit. And you want to make sure that you have a full jar. Just be very careful because this is like lava. If this gets onto your skin, it's also sugar. So it's going to stick and peel. So if you spill any of this on your skin while holding a jar, you might fling it up in the air and a bunch might fall on you. It can be very dangerous. So keep that in mind and don't rush. Just go slow. There is no rush. To make sure that the lid is perfectly on. It's very hot, so you can't really touch it too much. Use some warm water while you're tightening it, and what that will do is it will make sure that you're not cooling it down too quickly, but cooling it down enough so that you can use your hands. So just like this. The other benefit is if you spilt any, you can clean that right now as you tighten. So turn it on. The bigger ones will be harder and harder because they're hotter, but they should be fine. After about 10 minutes for the small ones, retighten them, and about 20 minutes for the large ones. As it cools down, the metal shrinks and isn't always as tight as it should be. So just make sure you tighten it as you go. I'll wait another 10 minutes for these ones. The other thing you'll notice is right now you can pop it like that. As it cools down, it's gonna suck down with a vacuum and it will seal that stuff down. And that's how you know that it's fully sealed. If you can keep pressing this after all of this is done, that means the seal has been broken somehow, and that jam will either have to stay in the fridge or be used right away. It's not going to go bad right away. Like, it'll still take about a month or so, but you can't leave it out of the fridge because bacteria will slowly get in there and mold the top really quickly. Here's how the jams turned out. It took a whole day in the fridge, so make sure you leave it in the fridge to fully set. If you move this jam around, the pectin starts to turn back to a liquid. So make sure that you aren't shaking it all around or it won't settle properly. If you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I have my own website as well. Thank you, and have a nice day.